walk through the do's and don'ts of selling your game company. We're very pleased to have Jim Perkins from the Quorum Group today. Jim is an entertainment software entrepreneur. He's actually someone who's published quite a number of game titles before going into the investment banking world with Quorum Group, which is one of the world's leading software M&A firms. I'm going to turn it over to Jim here. Get started.
Thanks, Michael. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Hope everybody's enjoying the conference. It's a really great conference, and I look forward to meeting you after this session. I also encourage you to stick around after this 20-minute session for our sellers panel. We're going to have entrepreneurs that have sold their company recently, and they're going to give their insights into what they went through to sell their company. And then right after that, we got the buyers panel. We'll have Kabam and Big Fish and Amazon up here talking about what their criteria is for buying game companies. So I would encourage you to stick around for that. There's a lot of really great information that can be gained from that. My name is Jim Perkins. I have started and built video game companies in the past. I am like you in that respect, and have sold those companies successfully, and now I'm working with Quorum Group. We are M&A specialists. We've been around for almost 28 years. We've done close to 300 deals. We only represent selling companies that are selling to larger companies in the software business. We are headquartered in Seattle. We have offices around North America and Europe, and are moving into Asia as well. Our headquarters in Europe are in Zurich. So what I'm going to do today is there's really three things I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what the optimal outcome is when you sell your company. And then I'm going to tell you some of the things, share with you some of the things that you should do to prepare to get that optimal outcome. And then we're going to talk about things you should not do, things to avoid, some of the pitfalls, some of the dangers that you can fall into when preparing your company for sale and actually going through that sale process. So optimal outcome, the best outcome for selling your company, the do's and the don'ts. What is the optimal outcome? Well, it's more than just value maximization, but one of the most important things to you as entrepreneurs is to get the most for your company, preferably cash. But in addition to that, you have to think about some other things when you're putting that deal together. You want to put together the best structure. Obviously, cash is the best deal you can do, or there could be some incentives there, but you want to drive the best possible structure. You don't want to have a lot of delayed payments. You don't want to have everything based on your performance. You want to get the best possible deal for the company. You want to minimize your risk. You want to make sure that what you've promised you can deliver. And you don't want to go overboard in terms of forecasts. If your payments are tied to a forecast, you just want to minimize that risk as much as possible, especially personal liability. Taxes. Always talk to your accountant. The structure of the deal can vary widely and affect your taxes widely, so keep that in mind. It's very, very important. Structuring the proper non-competes, structuring the proper employment agreements, retention plans for your team is very critical to the value of the company and to the ongoing success of your company with the acquirer. And providing for proper integration. What is the plan after you sell your company? Do you have a plan? Ask the buyer, what is the plan for my company? What are we going to do with the company? Am I moving to Siberia? Am I staying where I am? Do I get to keep my employees? Do I keep my team to build value within that buyer? It's really critical that you have that integration plan worked out before you actually complete the sale of your company. Here are the stages of the optimal outcome, and I'm going to go through these quickly because we're limited a bit on time here. We want to leave room for questions. The first is preparation. It's very important before you go and sell your company, go to market, is to prepare all of the documents, prepare everything you can, including an executive summary and a financial memorandum and any other deals that are not documented. Make sure they're documented. You need to have everything in place before you go to market. You need to research who your buyers may be. And there's more than 3 or 4 buyers out there. For a typical game company, there could be up to 90 buyers. And a lot of those are companies that are overseas. In fact, in M&A, about 60% of the deals are done cross-border. So you need to go after the potential buyers overseas as well. Otherwise, you're going to miss a large part of your market and your buyers. Contact. It's very important to contact all of those buyers simultaneously. You want to be on the same page with every potential buyer out there. Otherwise, it gets incredibly difficult to track who's got what stage you're at in terms of the sell cycle, and what materials you're providing those people. So simultaneously going after those 80 buyers is very important, and tracking absolutely everything that you do, every conversation, every email, all of that is vitally important to a successful outcome, an optimal outcome. Discovery. The next stage there, discovery is very important, and you're doing that probably with a number of buyers there, the ones that have expressed interest. Up to 20, 25 buyers need things like the executive summary. They need the financial memorandum. You may be doing a PowerPoint presentation, a demonstration of your software, and so on. All of that needs to be synchronized with each of the potential buyers out there. Negotiation. This is the most important aspect of going through the process, and we'll get into some of the do's and don'ts in a minute, but when you're negotiating a deal, you need to be negotiating with at least 2 buyers, if not more. You want to be getting to the point where you know what that deal looks like with a detailed letter of intent. Something that lays out how you're going to get paid for the company, what's going to happen to the company after it's sold, any retention bonuses, any employment agreements, all of that needs to be laid out in a detailed multi-page letter of intent. And you should begin, again, negotiating with a number of parties and find the best letter, the best terms you possibly can. Sign a non-binding letter of intent, and then discuss moving forward with the due diligence, which is the next step. After you've signed a letter of intent with a buyer, you're going to go through due diligence, which means they're going to look into some of your financials, your projections, they're going to look at the code, they're going to understand, make sure the ownership of the code is clear, make sure all the agreements that you have in place with your partners are clear, and they understand exactly how you're operating the business. This can take a while, so it's important to prepare as much as possible ahead of time. You don't want to be doing forecasts and cleaning up your financials when you're in doing due diligence with a potential buyer. You want to have that already done so that process is happening as quickly as possible. As a seller of your company, time is not on your side. The shorter the period of time to which you close the deal, the better for you. Otherwise, things drag. There may be a reorganization within the buyer. They may find another candidate that they want to buy and that is better for them than you are, and so you want to push that process as quickly as possible. Preparation is really critical. And then the closing, this is where all the final reps and warranties happen, final opinions, you signed agreements, and you essentially close the deal. The money goes in the bank, and you're done. But it's not over at that point. You need to think about integration. Now what happens? Where are my people moving, if they're moving? What is my studio doing as a newly acquired company of a larger company? What am I in charge of? Do I have an opinion on the direction of what my acquirer is going in? Am I sitting on strategic meetings and development meetings and that sort of thing? Integration is very important. And frankly, many times integration doesn't work that well. If there's no planning ahead of time, if you're not having a discussion with the acquiring CEO about what your role is and how you get integrated into the new company, things may not go well. In the case of my company, we documented the fact that we would remain in the location we were at, we would retain employees and all of that, but still the acquirer attempted to shut us down and move us to New York. They couldn't do it because we had it written in a written agreement that we were going to stay where we were and we were going to continue our operations. but the acquirer may attempt to do that. So you need to have that documented as much as possible when you're, before you do the deal. Avoiding deal disasters. This is the fun part. Don't do these things. When you're planning, no matter what stage you're at in preparing to sell your company, or maybe you're not going to sell your company for 3 or 4 years, think about these things as you go through and grow your business and establish partnerships and that sort of, all those sorts of aspects of these deals. The 3 main things that affect the deal disasters are workload, value destroyers, and deal killers. Workload in selling your company is huge. Here are the top 20 of the 60 documents and projects that you need to achieve in order to sell your company. And the ones in red require outside help. They require third parties to be involved to help you prepare to sell your company. Here are the next 20, and things like audits and tax analysis and valuation reports. All those things need to be done in order to sell your company properly and get the optimal outcome. And the last 60, the ones in red, again, you can read them, but opinions and things like employment agreements and security agreements and patent analysis, all that needs to be done by a professional third party that can give you a proper opinion in preparing to sell your company. All right, the top 6 value destroyers, not necessarily in any order here, but confidentiality. It's really important to have NDAs in place and I guess what I would best advise is stage the information that you disclose to potential buyers. There's a level of trust there. NDAs are good, but you want to stage the level of information that you're disclosing to your potential buyers at a proper pace. Theft of technology, it happens. Doesn't happen as much these days as it used to happen, but it does happen. So be careful. Know your buyer. Know what they've done in the past. Talk to other companies that they bought in the past. And that's just really important to understand how they operate after they bought a company. Loss of staff. Many times companies will come in, and again, I don't see this as much now, but it used to happen quite a bit. Potential acquirers will come in and say, I'm really interested in buying your company. Tell me everybody that works here, what their names are, what they do, who the top ones are. And that's not really necessary in order to get to the point where they're going to at least put a letter of intent, and that may come in terms of due diligence. I wouldn't name a lot of your key people. You can lay out what their responsibilities are, but don't name them. Don't give them their personal cell numbers and home addresses. It's just not necessary. Wear on CEO and management. This is a biggie. This essentially going through selling your company is really time consuming. So it's important to have professionals involved to help you do that while you're running the company. The most important thing you can be doing while you're selling your company is continue to run your business and grow your business and do a great job at that. Make sure that happens. If the business drops off, if you're tired, you can't run the business, you don't know what's going on a day-to-day basis, things will go downhill, and those potential acquirers are not going to pay as much for your company, or they may see that business drop off and they will just cut off talks in terms of acquisition. Business drop off, again, that's related to the wear and tear. If your business is growing before then and you get diverted and distracted with selling your company, that's going to be a problem. You need to keep the momentum and the growth of your company going as much as possible. And this is one of the most important things. You need to understand the trends that are going on in the marketplace. Watch what's happening in the marketplace, what companies are buying what other companies, what new companies are entering the market in the game space, and there's a lot of new companies entering the space. It's a very, very active M&A market today with valuations like we've never seen before. So keep track of that. get as much information as possible so that you're informed about what's going on and you time that sale of your company properly. As Alina pointed out earlier this morning, there's heavy acquisitions going on in mobile, and there's not in terms of talent for console developers, because a lot of the major publishers have all of that talent in-house for PlayStation or Xbox content. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind about who the new Asian buyers are. Keep in mind about who the buyers are in the market, like Yahoo, that entered very aggressively here this year, and people like Amazon. Amazon will be on the buyer panel here this afternoon. Keep those guys in mind, and keep track of what they're buying and why they're buying those companies. Top 10 deal killers. Number one by far is dealing with only one buyer. If you're dealing with only one buyer, who's running that process? The buyer's running the process. They're setting the timing, they're setting the price, they're setting the terms of the deal. You need to have competitive buyers at the table competing with other buyers. That will send your price up, and you'll get a better deal as a result of it. So don't deal with just one buyer. You need multiple buyers at the table. Misalignment, it's really critical to make sure that all your shareholders and your management team are on the same page as far as selling your company. If something crops up while you're going through the process of selling the company, you've got a letter of intent signed, and the buyer finds out that half the shareholders did not or were not aware that you were selling the company or how much you were going to sell the company for, that can pose major issues, and the buyer will walk away. They'll walk away immediately. Contact at the wrong level. When you're selling your company, you're dealing at the level of a CEO or executive vice president of corporate development or senior vice president at that level. You're not dealing with product development. You're not dealing with marketing. You're dealing with the executives within the company whose job is to make sure that their company grows through acquisition and does that properly. Otherwise, there could be people in product development or marketing that actually may say it, but don't want to buy your company because they may feel threatened by the situation of bringing in a new team or new expertise that may displace them. So be very careful about dealing with the right management, the senior management, in selling your company. Improper research of potential buyers. You can spend months or years talking to potential buyers that really either can't afford you, or they have no intention of buying you, or just for whatever reason they want more information. You need to be dealing with the right buyers. They need to be qualified, and that takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of contacts within various organizations on an ongoing basis. Misunderstanding the buyer's motives. This definitely will kill a deal. You need to understand in that first meeting, why would Yahoo or why would Tencent or why would EA want to buy me? Ask the question. You're there to do as much due diligence on the buyer as they are to do due diligence on you. Find out why they're interested in you, and you can elaborate in that area. Inability to portray value properly. You need to back up the price that you want for your company. You need to be able to say, my company is worth $30 million, and this is why. And there's a lot that goes into that valuation process. Improper due diligence, we talked about that. If it's taking more and more time, if it takes 4 months to do due diligence, more likely is that the deal is about to fall apart. It could fall apart because it's just taking too long, and the buyer could be moving on to other things or other priorities. Not qualifying the buyers properly, again, doing your research. Not orchestrating all the buyers properly. This is again, to reinforce this point, it's critical that you're dealing with more than one buyer and that you're managing that whole process simultaneously so that you get the best price for your company. And finally, ego, greed, and arrogance. It's a big deal. I've run into situations where a company gets offered $50 million for their business. And the CEO of the selling company says, well, if they're willing to pay $50 million, I'm sure they're going to pay $80 million. No, they're not. they're looking at your company. They say $50 million is the price we're willing to pay after all the negotiation and the bidding up by competitive buyers. Don't think that they're going to say, yeah, I can ask for $80 million when $50 million is the price that it is a fair valuation. So closing thoughts. Some interesting figures here. What percentage of self-managed M&A transactions fail? Meaning if you try to sell your company by yourself, do it all yourself, do all the documentation, what's the percentage rate of failure? And it's actually 80% or higher. Right now it's about 85%, which we track. So don't do it yourself. It's important to work with others to make sure that the process goes smoothly, that you get the proper value, and things move along smoothly. Leverage an intermediary. This is critical. It tells the buyer that you are serious as a seller. It also tells the buyer that you're not the only bidder. And it's great if I buy you, and it's not good if I don't buy you. All right. So let's, I just wanted to open up to any questions if we've got a little time. Yeah. You want a mic?
What's the proper timing to get a relationship with a seller's agent, and what factors should you look at in evaluating different investment bankers?
I would make sure that they deal internationally because 60% of your buyers are international. I would make sure that they understand your industry. In the early days when I had game companies, I hired an investment banker that didn't understand the gaming business, and I was teaching them how to do it, and I was contacting all the obvious buyers. So make sure they're focused on the industry and they know the industry well. Make sure they're experienced. Make sure they've done deals before in your space, and make sure they're international. And there's some other ones there. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
One more.
Go ahead.
So, great deck. Nate Hennings with Union Square Advisors, so fellow banker. 3 questions, actually. I'd love to know where that last data point came from because I think it's super interesting,
Yep.
and I believe it. Second would be, among the top 10 deal killers, where would you rank missing plan during the process? So we've seen that really crush some.
Sorry,
And the last would be, it looked like you outlined a broad auction process or other processes that are more appropriate for different situations.
Right. So that number comes from the deals that we know about, that we've seen, and from some of the advisors. We have the World Tech Council, which is independent owners, entrepreneurs, investors, and they are telling us that I think they're 400 strong now. They're telling us what they're seeing in the market in terms of failure rate of self-managed things. What was your second question?
The top 10 deal killers, where would you rank missing plan during the process? So coming out with projections, 20 million and then doing 15.
It's really important in terms of selling your company. It's very important to get as much money up front as possible. Or if you are tied to a plan, maybe it's a 1-year sales forecast or a 2-year sales forecast, and you're not in control of that plan because you've been acquired, things are going to go bad.
I was asking less about burnouts and more about just completely moving order during the process.
Oh,
So you're 2 months in.
that's a
and
problem.
you just completely.
It's a very big problem. I would recommend in that case, in most cases, that you take a step back, go on a hiatus, and start up again when things get better, because that'll really spook the buyers out there in terms of missing plan.
And then the last question was, it looked like you outlined a broad auction process. So what other processes might be appropriate in different situations?
I think the auction process is probably the best process. Just getting as many buyers to the table as possible, and there's a whole lot of information that we can share. We actually run a merge briefing every month around the world. It's a seminar that gives you an idea of how that process works in detail. And we also do a boot camp called Selling Up, Selling Out around the world every month, and then it goes into more detail on what you should be thinking about in that process. But the auction process is probably the best process because you've got competing buyers pushing up the price on average about 48% from the initial offer. Okay. Any other questions? No? Thank you.